We did Hager Mountain, we've done Broken Top, we've been up Bachelor, Tumalo Mountain, Diamond Peak, quite a few others.
Well, I always liked Grey Butte a lot because of the great vistas and variety of riding. Skull Hollow, Grey Butte.
One of my favorites is an old one when the Black Rock guys, Dennis and a bunch, about 7 or 8 of us got together. We got up early in the morning before daylight, drove up to Pole Creek up there west of Sisters. And we got out and we rode all the way around the Three Sisters on the existing trails. I think it was about midnight before we got back to the car again. It was an unbelievably long ride.
We did Diamond Peak Wilderness Ride. We've done Gerhardt Wilderness Ride. What else have we done? We used to ride up and down Black Butte all the time. We'd do these moonlight rides. We'd ride up to the top of Black Butte, no lights in the moonlight, and ride back down. And there's nobody on the trails at 10 o'clock at night.
One of my favorites was, it's a hotbed for riding now, but it was Phil's Trail, and that was even before it became Phil's Trail. We used to ride out the west side of town quite a bit, over Turf Butte area. Quick rides, you could go up on Aubrey Butte, because that was before it was really developed, and there were a lot of great trails on Aubrey Butte.
Brooks Resources at the time had not developed it, but they allowed us to bomb up and down that thing and just have a blast right here in town.
As more and more people started riding, we started to develop more trails, and Phil was really the big one, is developing trails. And Phil would get them going, and the rest of the guys, we were all part of the Black Rock mountain bike groupo, and we'd come up and work on the trails a little bit, and Phil was the one who was flagging them out through the brush mostly, and obviously, I mean, Jimmy T and some of the other guys, their names are on some of the signs up there on those trails as well.
We were riding along the Metolius River. We'd drive from Camp Sherman to Lake Billy Chinook along the Metolius, because back in those days it was okay. And Jerry Young, that owns Young's old Volkswagen here in town, was with us that day, and came around the corner, and there's this bicycle sticking out of the river. All you can see is the wheel and 2 feet in the pedals sticking up out of the river. That was Jerry Young. He'd gone over head first into the water, and all was sticking out, like I said, was his rear wheel and his feet. And we jumped off our bikes and grabbed him and pulled him out of the water. He's coughing and sputtering. He almost drowned. That was because he'd been in for 20, 30 seconds anyway already. Yeah. So that was a pretty good, but he didn't get hurt, and everybody was okay, and it's just another good story.
Let's just say that we rode in places today that you would be arrested for.
I think my favorite race for a long time was Whiskey Town Downhill. And that was back in, I think the first one of those was 1980, 81. That was a great race. It was like, I don't know, 35 miles long. It was down by Whiskey Town Lake, down there by Shasta. And it was like a 4 or 5 hour long race.
The first ride and race that I thought, I wouldn't really call it a race, is we called it the Cascade Cruise. And we started, as I recall, at Mount Bachelor parking lot, and then rode up to towards Broken Top, and then from there all the way down to Skyliner and Tumalo Falls in that area where we ended up. And instead of being a race, because we called it a cruise, we mostly was like, let's just go out and have fun. And so we put some t-shirts together and hats and things like that. And people would strap a cooler on the back of their bicycle, whether it was a mountain bike or clunker or whatever they wanted to ride. And you'd take your lunch and your beer and you'd ride, and when you wanted to stop, you stopped and had lunch, and we all just kind of met down at the bottom for a little party. And that was probably the first race that I could say was probably a race.
Well, the early races were races, but they weren't competitive like they are now. I mean, you could ride along and talk to someone, or you'd pass somebody going up a hill, they'd pass you going down, and you would always give them room to pass. It wasn't, I mean, nowadays you go out and race and people don't like to let you pass, and nobody can talk because they're breathing so hard. So it was much less competitive and friendly. You met new people and you became friends with them.
Well, it grew exponentially because Northern California had these big races. Ashland started their 4th of July event, and it just suddenly it went from 40 competitors one year to 240 the next, just like that. Mainly because of the Northern California race. Whiskey Town Downhill was the real big race at the time.
It turned and went straight up a hill, and Bob was on a single speed, so I was thinking, well, I should be able to stay ahead of him, but as I was pushing my bike up this really steep hill, Bob went running by me with his bike on his shoulder and disappeared.
And later on we did a race called the Race Around the Base, and we used the catch line at Mount Bachelor, went all the way around Mount Bachelor, and of course that's before they had the summit lift or any of that. And in the backside, the catch line was really not there, hardly at all. So you could ride the catch line as part of the Race Around the Base, and then you pretty much had to pick up your bicycle and pack it over the rocks and timber and stuff like that, and work your way all the way around the base of Mount Bachelor.
The Revenge of the Siskiyous. And they had this one part in the race there called Revenge Hill. Right at the bottom of Revenge Hill is a creek bed down there. And I'm riding, I am duking it out with this other guy. He'd be ahead of me, and I'd catch up with him and pass him, and then he'd pass me. And we got down to that creek bed, and he took off up the hill. And here's Woody down in the creek bed there, just sitting there. He's out of water. And all I have was a Camelback on my back. I didn't have water bottles. But anyway, he says, "Peter, can I have some of your water?" And I go, "Well, I'm trying to catch this guy, you know?" And I almost threw my Camelback down to let him have it, but I said, "I need to catch this guy." Oh, he says, "That's okay. There'll be more people coming. I'll get the drink, no problem." But I feel bad that day I left Woody stranded in that creek bed with no water.
I did win the Cascade Cruise. It was an annual event, and a competing bike shop at the time organized the ride and put it on, but I showed up, and I was off the front and solo victory, and they were all kind of looking around like, "Who's this guy?" It's like, "Well, this is your first finisher. My name's Jim Lewis." It was pretty cool.